Well, thank you, Speaker. It's a pleasure for me to rise today to speak on this government legislation, again, Bill C-25, an act to amend the Canada Elections Act. I'm a member of the Procedure and House Affairs Committee and have scrutinized this proposed legislation in my capacity there, and I've also spoke about this bill a couple of months ago in mid-April. In that speech, I highlighted that this is a much-needed piece of legislation, one that Conservatives have been calling for since before the 2019 election. There are some good things, Mr. Speaker, in this bill, some much-needed tools to help handle foreign interference in our elections. However, as I noted not even 2 months ago, it doesn't go far enough, especially with how it pertains to third-party fundraising and foreign contributions. As we heard clearly from expert witnesses at the Procedure and House Affairs Committee, Bill C-25 will improve the protection that Canadians have with respect to the electoral process, including from dangers posed by hostile foreign actors. However, it does leave some major holes, primarily regarding foreign contributions outside the election period. Well, how do we know this, Mr. Speaker? we know because we as Conservatives are the ones who've been advocating for changes to the Canada Elections Act to deal with this very issue for quite some time now. And I'll take some of the folks in this room way back with me to May 8th of 2019. And that's the day that my private member's bill, C-406, was voted down at second reading in this very chamber. The bill was entitled An Act to Amend the Canada Elections Act regarding foreign contributions, and its goal was to deal with exactly this problem then. The same problem we're talking about now, 7 years ago and 3 elections before the one that we've just had. So this bill that I had proposed, Bill 406, was a bill that amended the Elections Act to prohibit foreign contributions to third parties for election advertising purposes. Now this is very important to me because third-party funding certainly comes in the form of advocacy and is used by third parties in campaigns to campaign against what I would consider to be the financial interests of the people that I represent and the financial interests of my home province, which is Alberta. I also understood at that time that just out of a matter of principle, Canadians and Canadians alone should be the ones funding and debating and voting in a Canadian election, a general election. And it does make sense. Foreign entities and countries outside our borders likely should not be able to fundraise or spend money for political purposes here in Canada. That in itself is a breach of public trust, and I think by the very definition is, of course, a semblance of foreign interference, whether it's happening covertly or not. If we don't know about it, it's a problem. My private member's bill would have stopped that foreign fundraising that influences our elections from taking place here in Canada. It addressed the very issues that Bill C-25 claims to address. Here we are nearly a decade later. But you'll never guess what happened, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals voted against this bill, including the Liberal MP from Scarborough-Guildwood Rouge Park, who is now the Public Safety Minister. The same Public Safety Minister who is now overseeing a new foreign agent registry that was recently introduced by the Liberals, despite being rabidly opposed to such a registry when it was the Conservatives, my colleague Kenny Chiu, former colleague Kenny Chiu, who proposed it. Things are going to make you go, Mr. Speaker. It's almost like the Liberals will only support a good policy once they've been dragged through the ringer to actually get to see that it's a good idea. It's I don't know what it is. They just genetically oppose every idea that we pose to them until their ideas start to miserably fail and afflict Canadians some 4 to 8 years later. Then all of a sudden they see the light and do the things that we've been telling them that they should be doing all along. And it doesn't exactly breathe confidence into the issue of dealing with foreign interference now, does it, Mr. Speaker? We know that this is a theme. The Liberals often chastise Conservatives for big sweeping policy ideas, but give it half a decade. And once the chickens come home to roost on the cabal of bad ideas across the way, you'll see that Liberals will eventually adopt Conservative ideas and rebrand them and package them as their own. The Prime Minister did it at Oxford with his thesis, and he's doing it here as well in the House of Commons. I only wish they'd have adopted my idea of banning foreign nationals and entities from donating and supporting third parties for election advertising purposes a long time ago. Seems like common sense to me, but that might not be such a common thing across the aisle. We studied this issue at length at committee, where we heard from several witnesses, including most recently Gerald Shapira, that this bill does not go far enough. It needs to crack down even harder on foreign monetary contributions. In other words, there is still a gaping hole that allows foreign entities to send money to third parties, which could end up influencing or affecting or being spent in our general elections. It cracks down, but it doesn't prohibit. It doesn't go far enough. There are still wide open loopholes for foreign funding to pour in to Canadian elections. Foreign contributions for political purposes are still allowed in Canada. This bill, C-25, does not change that. And there's lots of witnesses that came before the Procedure and House Affairs Committee that testified in their opinion this is completely unacceptable. And I think most Canadians, if they knew that money was coming in from third parties, from outside, to third parties from outside of Canada, and that money was being spent on elections advertising, I think they would be quite concerned. So what came out of our foreign interference study at committee, perhaps most notably, was also our former candidate Joe Tay's testimony. Mr. Tay was our Conservative candidate of record in Don Valley North, whom former Liberal MP Paul Chang put a bounty on during the 2025 election. Chang encouraged folks to turn Mr. Tay into the Chinese consulate in Toronto for a cash reward. Mr. Tay already had an arrest warrant issued by the communist regime in Beijing for making pro-democracy comments about what's going on in Hong Kong and China from here in Canada. And this was a Liberal MP at the time, encouraging basically the kidnapping of a political adversary. Goodness knows what would have happened if Mr. Chang actually would have got his way. We also know, based on testimonies at committee from volunteers on Mr. Tay's campaign, that they were stalked, followed, intimidated, and harassed by individuals. These are campaign volunteers, for crying out loud. It's hard enough to find people to come out and participate in our elections. The last thing we need is foreign entities and foreign funds coming in to discourage, intimidate, and harass campaign volunteers, regardless of the political party that they're helping, Mr. Speaker. This is just wrong. It's wrong across the board. It's not just wrong when it happens to Conservatives. It's wrong when it happens to Liberals, NDP, Bloc, and everybody. And since these incidents, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has praised Paul Chang as a person of integrity and has also strengthened Canada's ties with the People's Republic of China through trade and security partnerships. Just over a year ago, on the debate stage during the 2025 election, the Prime Minister, who was then admitted that the biggest threat to Canada's security is the communist regime in China. Now, I'm not sure, but I'd like to know where that Prime Minister went. And they, across the aisle here, expect us to believe that they're serious about halting foreign interference. Well, they'll have to give me a bit of a break sometimes, Mr. Speaker, because I'm not buying what they're selling. I try to make it make sense, but it just doesn't. These are the individuals who are interfering in our elections and meddling in our campaigns. They're targeting our people, and they're suspending money on propaganda campaigns which endanger Canadians, especially those in specific diaspora communities. And this bill does nothing to solve these problems. Sure, the bill cracks down on foreign spending during the writ period, but it leaves a massive hole for foreign entities to pour money into political advertising outside the writ period. Now, for folks that are watching at home, you wonder what the writ period is. There's a writ period, and when we have a fixed election, there's a pre-writ period, and then there's the 3 years in between. Well, during those 3 years, Elections Canada will not be counting third parties will not be required to separate the molecules per se. So any money that comes into those third parties from foreign entities during that time frame will not be scrutinized by Elections Canada. So they can just bankroll all of these things in the pre-writ period and then spend as much as they want during the writ and writ period during a fixed election. So, but if you don't take my word for it, this is coming directly from constitutional legal experts who gave their testimony as a committee, who said that they agreed with the exact interpretation that we had when we read the bill. So it still leaves that gaping hole. So Conservatives have been talking about foreign interference for nearly a decade. After 2021, our leader at the time brought up the issue of foreign interference in our elections. He was supported by our former colleague Kenny Chu from Steveston, Richmond East, who warned for years about foreign interference before being a victim of himself. So these are the issues that we've had. We've had a public inquiry into foreign interference, Mr. Speaker. That was the government dragged their feet on that and finally subdued to the mountains of pressure that were put on them at the time. They seem to be reluctant the whole time. It's almost as if the foreign interference regime that was being orchestrated for the last couple of elections had a blind eye turned to it, because it obviously benefited somebody in this chamber. But I'm glad to see the government has, at least it looks like they're trying to change their ways and is presenting this bill. Conservatives still have massive concerns with it, but we'll be supporting this bill and making sure that the Canada Elections Act is, if not perfect, at least better than it is today.